Hi, I'm Peter Boland, welcoming you to part 2 of our continuing deep inquiry into the wisdom of Nisargadatta Maharaj, the great 20th century teacher of non-duality, and his sayings recorded in this remarkable book, I Am That, by Maurice Friedman, who set up a big reel-to-reel tape recorder in his little smoke-filled apartment above his tobacco shop, and for a long, long time recorded Nisargadatta's responses to waves of pilgrims and seekers coming to him, mostly from Europe and North America, to inquire into this school of thought, this darshana of Hinduism called Advaita Vedanta, the idea that all is one and that we are already inseverably unified with the ground of being, only we don't know it because mind creates the abyss. And so in our first video, we sketched a little bit about who he was, his bio. If you're curious about that and you haven't seen video 1, go back and check that out. But here we are going deeper into a whole bunch of passages that I've extracted from the text that I want to share with you here, comment on, and invite you into a satsang, a gathering around truth, a sangha, a community of those of us who, using this technology, gather around these ancient insights. You know, Nisargadatta isn't teaching anything that hasn't been taught before or since. Every teacher simply brings their experience of the oneness into their vernacular, their context, their culture, and we gather around again and again these great voices to feel ourselves beginning to remember, beginning to get reacquainted with our own essential natures. That's pretty exciting. So let's jump back in. So here's a line that's jumped out at me that Nisargadatta spoke in that room. All life on earth depends on the sun. Yet you cannot blame the sun for all that happens, though it is the ultimate cause. This is Nisargadatta's attempt to address one of the great problems in all world religion and philosophy. And I'll put it this way. If God is good, and if God is all-knowing, and if God is everywhere, and if God is in charge, then why is there evil? Why does horror happen in a world that emanates from a benign, beneficent, all-powerful being or ground of being or reality? Now, in this Vedanta context, we're not talking in a traditional way about God the way, say, Jewish or Muslim or Christian theists would. The whole theogony problem or problem of evil problem in Western religion takes on a little bit of a different flavor here in non-duality, but to my mind, it's still fundamentally the same. Our longing to understand why is there irrationality, thoughtlessness, cruelty, evil, horror in the world. Somehow the source must be responsible for it. So this is his reply. All life on earth depends on the sun, yet you cannot blame the sun for all that happens, though it is the ultimate cause. So that isn't a long-winded defense or apologetic of how the existence of evil does not deny the existence of a beneficent source. But it is a pretty quick and helpful one-liner that helps in an imaginative, metaphorical, aphoristic way that helps us kind of say, that analogy actually has power. That the sun is the cause of all life on earth, but because this organism did something thoughtless and cruel to this organism, is that the sun's fault? Or is there something inherent in being an embodied creature that necessitates things like thoughtlessness, competition? You know, there's a line in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, we are driven to action by our own natures. So perhaps there's something about being embodied. And perhaps there's, you know, in these bodies with all these urges, perhaps there's something about being separated into ego packages that distorts my consciousness. It hides from me my oneness with you and with the divine. And that's the source of the conflict and the horror, not Brahman or whatever your name for ultimate reality is. Here's another thought from Nisargadatta. The desire for truth is the highest of all desires, yet it is still a desire. All desires must be given up for the real to be. We were thinking about this in the last video, this longing that seems inherent in our humanness, to know, to understand, to love, to be loved, to heal, to come out of confusion and into clarity. These are natural longings or desires. And what this teacher is trying to do is draw our attention to this curious dynamic that maybe it is the desiring itself that is generating the anxiety, the dissatisfaction. Even though he admits in the opening there, hey, in the plethora of all human desires, the desire for truth is the highest kind of desire. But in the end, it's still just another thing you want, just another thing you crave, because you mistakenly believe that you do not already have it. As we discussed in video 1, craving freedom instead of realizing you're free right now. All desires must be given up for the real to be. Renunciation is a word we often hear in Hindu studies. You know, Gandhi was asked by a journalist once, what's your philosophy of life? And he said, renounce and enjoy. 3 words. Renounce means let go. Let go of cravings and desires. Let go of the illusion that you're in control. Let everything be as it is. Let everything unfold as it is. And from that moment, then begin to take action. Buddha calls it non-attachment and claims in the Four Noble Truths, especially the second one, that all attachments and cravings generate misery. They generate suffering. Nisargadatta goes on and says, playing with various approaches may be due to resistance to going within. To find water, you do not dig small pits all over the place, but drill deep in one place only. So here, Nisargadatta is responding to a question from a pilgrim who says, you know, I'm interested in all the world's wisdom traditions, and boy, can I relate to that, right? I really am a student of all of them, and I feel like an expert in none. And I wonder sometimes in my own life if being a tourist has prevented me from becoming a resident. And I think that's what this passage is about, that playing with various approaches, he says, may be due to resistance to going within. Maybe the reason some of us are drawn to study all the religions and philosophies and read all the books and watch all the videos, maybe that's because we're actually avoiding something. Ouch. Maybe we're avoiding focusing on one path, taking the time to go deeper. I love that second half, you know, that to find water, you do not dig small pits all over the place, but you drill deep in one place only. I'm reminded of a line from Joseph Campbell, who was asked in those great The Power of Myth videos by the journalist Bill Moyers, asked Campbell, some questions about this. And Joseph Campbell, I guess like a lot of us, was a student of all wisdom traditions. And Campbell said, I'm paraphrasing, Campbell said something like, well, for a chap like me who tends to cross the wires and look at all of it, I'll never have the depth experience of a guru or of a saint, Joseph Campbell said. Yeah. So this is an interesting challenge that Nisargadatta gave to that one student that asked him this question, that great, learning about other traditions is great, but just make sure that it is not an avoidance mechanism to avoid doing the difficult and deeply, probably disruptive work of going within to inquire about your authentic nature. Here's another line from the book. Do what needs to be done, leaving success and failure to the unknown. For everything is caused by innumerable factors of which your personal endeavor is but one. Yet such is the magic of man's mind and heart that the most improbable happens when human will and love pull together. This is about, to put it in terms again of Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita, work without attachment to the outcomes of work. Work without attachment to the phala, to the fruits of work. Just do what needs to be done in this passage here, leaving success and failure to the unknown. There are too many factors that contribute to the unfolding of this event, this experience, this phenomenon, of which your effort is only one tiny factor. And so when we realize that our action is necessarily and always in concert with chains of karmic causation coming in from every direction, too innumerable to count, then you begin to let go and realize I am not the sole agent or the sole cause of what unfolds in my life. I am as much a witness of this crazy circus parade as I am a participant in it. And so to contribute as best I can with what I understand from the depth of my authentic love, what I can contribute, and then let go. Knowing that we have done our best. And that, in fact, our efforts are supremely important. That last bit, that the most improbable happens when human will and love pull together. We're not visitors here. We're not apart from this. We are this. And when you really take that non-dual perspective to heart, you realize that it isn't Peter Boland doing these actions. Peter Boland is just Brahman taking form as Peter Boland, working through me. And when I surrender and allow the eternal sacred presence that animates all reality to animate me, that's when real power and effectiveness emerge. People in the Western religions speak that way, that I'm going to get out of God's way. God use me, Christians and others on the theistic Abrahamic side of things might say. That famous and fabulous Father Michael Judge prayer, God, take me where you want me to be. Let me meet who you want me to meet. Tell me what you want me to say, and keep me out of your way. That is the condition of consciousness that Nisargadatta is pointing to here. He goes on to say, Work on, and the universe will work with you. After all, the very idea of doing the right thing comes to you from the unknown. Leave it to the unknown as far as the results go. Just go through the necessary movements. You are merely one of the links in a long chain of causation. Again, I'm reminded of Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, who said, it is for us to do the work, but the results are always in God's hands. And the great reformers, who isn't inspired by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who deeply embodied this same consciousness, this curious paradox of action and surrender, of knowing that we are morally obligated to show up and do the right thing. And we are also wise when we let go of the outcome and say, I don't know what the timetable is or what exactly is going to happen next, but I do know that I have a part to play, and I'm going to play it fully, earnestly, honestly, authentically, courageously, lovingly, and let go. He says, you are universal. You need not and you cannot become what you already are. Which is such an important reminder, because as soon as I hear it, I'm like, yeah, and then I forget. I need to hear it again and again and again. So he ends up saying that or something very similar to that over and over and over again throughout the book. And you can imagine the scene in his little smoke-filled apartment above his tobacco shop as waves of pilgrims come through and ask him questions. He's seeing a parade of strangers, and he just finds fresh and new ways to say it over and over again. You are universal. You are the one, in other words. You need not and you cannot become what you already are. And then he says this: having never left the house, you are asking for the way home. That's it. Having never left the house, you are asking for the way home. All spiritual seeking begins to dissolve in the wisdom of that insight. We only think we are separate from the sacred source. The thinking is the problem. I often put it this way, that we don't have a proximity problem. We have a perception problem. There is no abyss. There is no chasm between us and the beloved, except the one that we create in our own mind. He says, don't try to understand. It's enough if you do not misunderstand. Don't rely on your mind for liberation. It is the mind that brought you into bondage. Go beyond it altogether. As a philosophy professor, I get nervous when people say, don't try to understand, but I know what he means here. We are not going to think our way into awareness or awakening. In fact, it turns out human beings, really can't think their way out of a wet paper bag. I think we've overestimated our own conceptual, cognitive, intellectual processes. We've done great things. The vast storehouse of human knowledge is something wonderful to behold. But it can't cross that final bridge. Instead, he says, simply inquire, who is ignorant? And ignorance will dissolve like a dream. Ramana Maharshi before him, and many of the devotees that came out of that lineage, and a lot of contemporary teachers like Adyashanti and others use this same inquiry in their satsangs, in their meditation teachings. Simply ask in your meditation, who is meditating? Or who is ignorant? Or who is suffering? And bring your attention there. Am I the one who is suffering? Or am I the inner witness of the suffering? And instead of rushing to an answer, simply sit in the space the question creates. And in that space, in that presence, awareness begins to well up. I'll see you on the other side for episode 3 of our inquiry into Nisargadatta's wonderful collected wisdom. I am that. Namaste.